The Storming of the Bastille was the turn of the century. It increased the conflict between revolutionaries and the French monarchy, showing the power of the Third Estate and becoming a symbol of national pride for the French people. It all started in 1789, a few years after the American Revolution had happened. France had allied itself with America against Great Britain and provided soldiers, supplies, and money. After the war, France's economy was suffering from financial issues. They were near bankruptcy and their people were suffering. Back then, France's society was divided into three estates. The first estate was composed of the clergy, the second estate consisted of the nobility, and lastly, the third estate were the peasants. The peasants had to pay really high taxes and can barely sustain themselves on what money they had, while the more wealthier people didn't even have to pay taxes. The people were becoming enraged at the unfairness, and the dismissal of Jacques Necker was the last straw.
Jacques Necker was the Director General of Finances. Necker was praised heavily as a financial genius because he was able to give America financial aid without raising taxes. While the people were content, not raising taxes caused France to lose a lot of their money and the public debt increased. Necker suggested to the king that France should become a constitutional monarchy. The idea sparked opposition from the noblemen, and they urged King Louis to dismiss Necker. Finally, on the 11th of July, the king gave in to the noblemen's request. The news of Necker's dismissal reached Paris on July 12th, sending the city into an uproar. The uprising lasted from July 12th through 14th. The mob went into a frantic search for weaponry to defend themselves against the king's mercenaries.
On the morning of July 14th, a few thousand people marched to a hotel and looted it, making off with tons of weapons, but not enough gunpowder to operate the weapons. They found out quickly that the old Bastille had recently been filled with 250 barrels of gunpowder, so they set off towards it. Later that day, 5,000 to 6,000 commoners marched to the Bastille, which was an old fortress at the center of Paris that had become a symbol of the monarchy's dictatorial rule. Their intention had been to only take the weapons and gunpowder that had been stored there by Bernard René Delaunay, the Bastille's military governor. However, they ended up completely destroying the Bastille, setting free its prisoners, and beheading the people in charge of the Bastille.
One of the many people in the mob acted as spokesperson and demanded to Delaunay that he turn over the weapons and that he disengage his cannons, which were positioned along the citadel's walls. He agreed to backing off the cannons, but after more discussion, the mob managed to push their way into the outer court, where Delaunay became alarmed and fired at them. With the people suffering most of the casualties, the fighting went from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Finally, the French guard intercepted the fight at 5 p.m. with cannons, forcing Delaunay to unwillingly surrender. Delaunay was captured along with Jacques Blessels and murdered by the mob. The mob then took vengeance by tearing down the Bastille, demolishing it stone by stone. On July 15, King Louis called for the dismissal of the mercenary troops and the recall of Necker in an attempt to calm the revolutionaries down. However, all he did was make them more enraged.
It was the turning point in the French Revolution. The storming of the Bastille got everyone working towards the same goal, which was to make France's society equal and reform the government. The Fête Nationale, or Bastille Day, is now celebrated on July 14th every year all throughout France. Bastille Day has been celebrated for over 138 years. On July 6, 1888, a law was enacted declaring it a holiday. Festivities include fireworks, parades, parties, and is regarded as one of the world's oldest annual military parades. The fall of the Bastille was a symbol of the people's unity as it brought together thousands of citizens. Together they were able to show the king the power of the Third Estate, showing everyone that France's government was falling apart and that they needed change.